Good morning. Indian Army's Northern Army Commander General Dwivedi recently said that the army is ready to take back Pakistan occupied Kashmir if it is ordered by the government to do so. As is well known, his area of responsibility has both the line of control with Pakistan and the line of actual control with China. And in Army's own assessment, the chances of a two-front war in his area of responsibility are very high. Therefore, what General Dwivedi is saying is that the army is ready to fight a two-front war to get back Pakistan occupied Kashmir if ordered by the government. It's a very interesting statement, and that is what I intend to discuss. So the start point has to be, what is the complexion of war? We are talking of two fronts here, but the complexion of war that India will fight with Pakistan and India will fight with China are entirely different. As far as Pakistan is concerned, the two sides will be looking at an ideal outcome of physical defeat of the other side, and it will manifest in one of the three forms: attrition of combat power of the other side, occupation of territory, and prisoners of war. Now, because it is about physical defeat and attrition, the entire focus of the two sides will be on battles or tactics. There will be battles on the ground, there will be battles in the air. This is where the focus will be. Now, I have explained in my earlier videos that any war is fought at three levels. The lowest level is where the battles are fought. Then we have the middle level, which is called the campaign level, which is the operational level of war, which is where the outcome of a war is determined. Because the outcome of war is always much more than the battles which are being fought in the combat zone. And the third or the highest level of war is the strategic level of war, where the political and the military leadership, they work together in unison to accomplish the political objectives and military aims which have been agreed to as an outcome of the war. So, as far as Pakistan is concerned, when it comes to the battles, when it comes to the attrition, they have a bit of a handicap against India because their numbers of their assets are less, the combat assets are less, and the manpower is less. It's actually half of what the Indian manpower is. So, but they have a big advantage at the strategic level, top level, as compared with India. Because while in India, the political and the military leadership have to agree, insofar as Pakistan is concerned, it is well known that issues of peace and war with India will mostly be determined by the Pakistan army or the Pakistan military. Therefore, this quick decision making helps them a lot, not only at the strategic level, but it offsets the advantages that the Indian army has at the tactical level by strengthening the middle level or the operational level of war. Therefore, as far as Pakistan is concerned, they will have an advantage of faster procurements as compared to India. They will have an advantage of making up the war wastage reserves or the surge requirements of war quicker than the Indian side. Then, as far as the campaign or the operation is concerned, they will have an advantage over India on the timing. They'll be able to determine the timings fast. Then the objectives, what objectives have to be accomplished in the air or on the ground by battles, and also in the shifting of forces, that where the forces have to be shifted for maximum gains. So these are the advantages. In other words, as I have maintained always and have written also in my books, Pakistan, because of these advantages, has never been defeated in any war that the two sides have fought since independence. And the manifestation that they have not been defeated is the existence still of the ceasefire line, which it was earlier before 1971, and now it is called the line of control, and it is very much there on the ground. The Indian side has not been able to obliterate that. This is about the India and Pakistan complexion of war. Now, as far as China and India are concerned, it will be an entirely different ballgame, because the focus of the PLA will not be on physical defeat of the Indian military or the Indian side. It will be on the cognitive defeat of India. Cognitive defeat at the strategic level, which involves the political leadership of India, and cognitive defeat of the military leadership at the campaign level, which involves the outcome of war. Now, because at the lowest level, there is no cognitive defeat where battles are fought. So, as far as the PLA is concerned, their war will be over. At the strategic and the operational level, they will completely bypass the tactical level or the battles, which is the strength of the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. So, this is roughly the complexion of war, which is very different. In one case, we are focusing on the battles, and in the other case, the focus will be on the cognitive defeat at the top two levels, completely ignoring the lowest level. Now, having said that, if this is what the war is, let us now examine step 2. What is happening in the peacetime on the two lines that we have? As far as Pakistan is concerned, much is known. What is happening has been happening over the years, but I need to recapitulate a few important milestones. For example, it is known that in 1990, because of an insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir, large number of Indian Army were inducted in the theatre. In Jammu and Kashmir, their aim was not to go to war with Pakistan. The aim was to stabilize the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. But as far as Pakistan was concerned, there was panic. There was panic because once large numbers were inducted, the then Pakistan Army Chief, General Asif Nawaz Janjua, he was certain that Indian Army is preparing to launch an attack to start a war. And he approached America also that they will start a war, but of course Americans really did nothing except some peace moves, which I am not going into at this stage. Now, so therefore, what was happening in the 90s was, on both sides, the clear enemy for both sides were the Pakistan Army and the Indian Army. So there were very frequent raids which were conducted by both sides on each other's military posts along the line of control. This is what was going on, and along with that, there was a need for the Pakistan Army to offset the advantage of large numbers of the Indian side, Indian Army. So therefore, it was their ISI which came up with the brilliant but time-tested strategy of supporting all the militants who crossed over into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. They were provided sanctuaries there, they were provided wherewithal, they were provided training, and they were provided all the means to come and fight inside the in the Indian territory and fight with the Indian Army. And this is what we refer to as the proxy war. Now, it is well known that whenever you have a sanctuary outside, it is impossible to defeat such an insurgency, such militancy, for the simple reason that the sanctuary has to be first defeated. It's a very simple thing which was never done. Then we had the Kargil War. That means 9 years later, in 1999, when the Kargil War happened, and the report of the Kargil War was very clear that the key reason why Kargil happened was India did not have the counter-offensive capabilities to take the war inside Pakistan. Now, this was a very big thing, which immediately the Indian military should have taken note of. The Indian Army should have taken note of. In fact, to recall, the then Army Chief famously said, his famous statement, when he was asked that, look, now they are occupying our territory, the militants, actually the regular army, the Pakistan Army. So General VP Malik said that we'll fight with whatever we have. In other words, no counter-offensive capabilities were there. So what the army should have done is build the counter-offensive capabilities, learn the lesson. They never did that. They never did that. They focused on building more Rashtriya rifles, because this is what was giving them power, which is what giving them seniority, which was giving them medals, which was giving them status in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So that is where the focus of the Indian Army was, unfortunately. Something like 5 division worth of Rashtriya Rifle, they were created by them. And everybody, all army officers, not only were looking at repeated tenures to go back to Jammu and Kashmir, to become the 15 Corps commander. 15 Corps is in Srinagar. That was considered a very prestigious posting because everybody got medals after that, however short the tenure may be. So therefore, when the Modi government came to power in in May of 2014, two things had happened. One, Indian army had lost the edge over the Pakistan army. It was simply not there because nobody bothered to build the counter-offensive capabilities. And number two, the focus was so much on counter-terror operations that no officer bothered to read or understand the advances in warfare, where the PLA, keeping an eye on the US military, was at the forefront. So the Chinese front was completely ignored. Now comes in Prime Minister Modi. Now with these two shortcomings, he knew when you have these shortcomings, the politicization of the army becomes very easy. Politicization basically means that the army to be used for the party objectives instead of the national objectives. So, within months of his coming to power in October 2014, he gave out the threat assessment to the Indian army and the Indian military that look, the threat is real, which is Pakistan. First of all, he said only focus on Pakistan. So the threat is real, Pakistan, but the enemy is invisible, which is terrorist. So just focus on the enemy. So keep on doing counter-terror operation because that is what would help the party. And this is what we saw in the so-called 2016 surgical strike and we saw in the 2019 Balakot air attacks. The reality was that the threat was the line of control, totally backed by the Pakistan military. And terrorism or the proxy war was simply a successful strategy meant to weaken the Indian army. Now you can keep fighting a strategy till kingdoms come. Nothing will come out of it. You will only become more and more weak. And this is a situation which has continued for 30 years. I am talking of the peacetime, but the Indian army wants to call this no peace, no war situation. So this is where we are as far as Pakistan is concerned. Now let's look at the peacetime on the other side, what's going on there. As is well known, consequent to the 5th August 2019 revocation of 370 and creation of the Ladakh Union Territory and the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory, when this happened on 5th, Amit Shah, the Home Minister, made a statement in Parliament the next day saying that look, Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Akshay Chin, they are part of India. And this was immediately followed up by making new maps where Akshay Chin was shown as part of the Union Territory of Ladakh and POK was shown in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and the Chinese were certainly not happy about it. So what did the Chinese do? So they replied the cartographic aggression of India by a physical aggression without firing a shot in April of 2020 by occupying deep inside, coming inside Indian territory and occupying territory and sitting on it where they sit even today. Now some said that it is something like 1000 square kilometers, but there are some reports, very cogent reports, which talk of something like 2000 square kilometers, which is today under the occupation of the PLA without firing a shot. I need to emphasize that. So this was a normal situation as far as India was concerned. There was nothing wrong with what was going on. Things actually went wrong when Galwan happened. Galwan happened on the 15th of June 2020. I am not here to discuss the details of Galwan. That actually requires a national commission to be instituted, probably if there is a next government in 2014, to go in the details of this. Why, I will explain a little later. But what I want to talk about is four implications or four things, four issues that came up after Galwan. The first was, the top issue was that within 4 days, on 19th of June 2020, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said publicly that nobody has come in our territory, nobody is occupying our territory. He made this statement. Please understand, as far as China and the PLA was concerned, this was a cognitive defeat of India at the strategic level of war without firing a shot. Because the Prime Minister of the country had succumbed to the pressure of the Galwan, where no shots were fired. I am repeating this, no shots were fired, because it was grey zone operations which was going on. So it is unprecedented that cognitive defeat happens at the strategic level without the cognitive defeat at the campaign level, the level of the military leadership. But this is precisely what happened on the 19th of June 2020. And the implication of that, or what followed, was which was expected. India and China on 10th of September 2020 signed a joint statement in Russia, signed by both the foreign ministers Jaishankar and Wang Yi, which has 5 points all loaded in favor of China, because the Indian cognitive defeat at strategic level had happened. So what were the points which were there in this joint statement? It said no status quo ante. That means there was no question of the PLA going back to where it was before it did the physical aggression in reply to the cartographic aggression of India. Number two, it made very clear that only what will happen is disengagement. And as we know, disengagement also has been limited. There will be no disengagement that will happen in Depsang and neither in Demchok. And all the disengagement, it has happened at 4 places. The buffer zone has been in India's territory and not on the PLA side. It has been created. And there is no mention of a de-escalation or a de-induction of forces. That means the PLA remains where it is, it does not go anywhere at all. And the third is that because the buffer zones have been created on Indian side, so the line of actual control now is being called the border areas. Please notice, the next time when the foreign minister speaks about the line of actual control, he will only mention border areas with China, and that is what it is. So this was the consequence of that. Now the second thing, as I said, the cognitive defeat at the campaign level, at the military level, had not happened. How we know that is that on 29th August 2020, it was an army initiative, because the army is good in tactics that it has honed over the years against Pakistan. They went and occupied the Kailash range. Then the Chinese put the pressure on the Indian government, and Indian government ordered the Indian army to vacate that place, and it has been vacated. So this is the second thing that has happened. Now the PLA is worried that what if the next time the Indian army decides to again do another tactical thing like it did at the Kailash range. So what they have done is, now they are referring to this entire problem not as a border issue, but as an issue of sovereignty. That means anything done next time, another repeat of what happened at Kailash, will tantamount to a war between China and India. This is what they are saying, but they also know they don't want war. Therefore, now we have all these reports of lot of infrastructure and a lot of infrastructure for armament, airfields, UCAB, shelters, they are coming up on the Chinese side, which of course is for training, which of course is because it is their permanent habitat, and of course it is also to ensure that no mischief like the Kailash range mischief happens again. The third thing is, please understand, the one lesson which was totally missed by the Indian side, by the Indian government in complete panic and fright, was that the Chinese never shot a fire when Galwan happened. In other words, they never wanted war in the first place. If anybody would have deliberated, they would have realized that China is supposedly looking at a peaceful rise through its Belt and Road Initiative. The second part of that initiative, rather the most important part of the initiative, which is the digital Silk Road, starts now. In fact, next year 2023, Xi Jinping has already announced that the forum will be held of the Belt and Road, where this digital Silk Road, which is about hardware and software cyber connectivity, will come into place, and this is about the third and the fourth industrial revolution. But this was completely missed in this country. And the fourth thing is, as I said in the beginning, Galwan, if we are looking at reforms, where to go, what actually happened in Galwan needs to be understood by everybody. It is something which needs to be made public. So, therefore, what is happening is, very recently the army chief, General Pandey, said that look, as far as China is concerned, the situation is unpredictable. And he is right. Why it is unpredictable is because as far as the army is concerned, the cognitive defeat has not happened. But unfortunately, because they are focused on tactics, they believe that that is where they will fight the war, which, as I explained, is not the case as far as PLA is concerned. So this takes me to the third point. The third point is, then what will be the war that General Dwivedi is talking that he will win? But I want to keep this video short, and this is something I will discuss next week. What is the war that he intends to win, or he believes that he will win? I will discuss in my next video. Thank you for now.